The sterile paper felt impossibly heavy in my hands. It wasn't just paper. It was years of quiet resentment, of ignored effort, of being unseen, all culminating in this single envelope. The return address was a name I knew, a name that held weight in academic circles, a name associated with opportunity that felt perpetually just out of reach. And beneath it, the official crest embossed real. My thumb traced the raised edges, a tiny mountain range on the smooth surface. The air in the kitchen, usually thick with the smell of stale coffee and last night's dinner, felt thin, charged. My own breathing seemed too loud. Across the table, Alex watched me, his young face a mirror of my own barely contained anxiety, overlaid with a layer of youth's fragile hope. This wasn't just about college anymore. This was about breaking a cycle I'd lived with my entire life. This was about proving, to myself more than anyone else, that worth wasn't measured in inherited advantage, but in earned victory. The silence stretched, taut, vibrating with unspoken futures. If you're holding your breath with me, drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly helps me bring these stories to life. I grew up in the shadow of potential. My sister, Sarah, had it in spades, according to my parents. She was brighter, quieter, more
destined.
I was just
Me.
practical.
Hands-on.
The one who figured things out by doing, often messily, rather than by reading. It wasn't a cruel household, not overtly. There was food on the table, a roof over our heads. But from early on, the scales were tipped. Sarah got the extra tutoring without asking. Sarah got the brand new bike, while mine was a slightly too small hand-me-down from a cousin. Small things, maybe, but they paint a picture over 18 years. A picture of a path being smoothed out for one child, while the other was expected to hack through the underbrush. My parents weren't malicious. They were simply blind to it. Or maybe they saw it and rationalized it. Sarah needed the help, they'd imply. She was delicate. I was sturdy, capable of handling whatever came my way. It sounds like a compliment, that capable, but it often felt like a polite way of saying, "You're on your own, my dreams were less important, less worthy of investment." A state school was fine for me, they'd say. Sarah, though, she needed a name. A prestigious one. It was a slow burn, this realization. Not a sudden shock, but a gradual understanding that seeped into your bones, chilling you from the inside out. You learn to rely on yourself because you know no one else is reliably in your corner. You build walls not just for protection, but to lean on because there's no other support system. You become fiercely independent, not because you want to, but because you have to. This independence, forged in the quiet fire of neglect, would become both my greatest strength and, sometimes, my loneliest burden. I watched Sarah glide through her teenage years, her path seemingly paved with good intentions and financial ease, while I worked part-time jobs through high school just of pocket money and save a pittance for a future I wasn't sure I could afford. The contrast wasn't just visible, it was palpable, a constant hum of inequality in the air. Every time Sarah mentioned a college brochure, a visit to a campus, a test prep course paid for by mom and dad, a little piece of my heart would harden. It wasn't envy, not exactly. It was the deep ache of knowing I wasn't valued in the same way, that my future wasn't considered an investment worth making. I pushed that feeling down, buried it under layers of practicality and self-reliance. I told myself it didn't matter. I didn't need them. I could do it myself. This mantra became my shield, and also my prison. The day the veil truly dropped wasn't dramatic. It was mundane. A Sunday dinner, the kind where forced pleasantries were exchanged, and everyone pretended we were a perfectly normal, happy family. Sarah was home from her freshman year. The conversation drifted to college finances. My dad, expansive after a glass of wine, chuckled and said something about how relieved he was they didn't have to worry about Sarah's loans, that the fund was more than enough for her tuition, room, board, books, everything. My mom nodded, adding a comment about setting it up when Sarah was born, ensuring it would be fully funded by the time she turned 18. They spoke about it like discussing the weather, completely oblivious to the icy shock that shot through me. I remember the fork clattering against the plate. My own college experience had been a patchwork of loans, grants I'd chased down myself, working 2 jobs, and eating ramen for 3 years straight. I had graduated with a degree and a mountain of debt that took me years to climb out from under. And all this time, a fully funded account, enough for everything, had existed for Sarah. Not just tuition. Everything. The air left the room. My ears buzzed. They had planned this, set it up from birth, ensured she would never face the struggle I did. And they had said nothing to me, never offered to help with mine, never even mentioned the possibility of a similar fund. The capable child left to sink or swim, while the delicate one was given a yacht. It wasn't just about the money. It was the deliberate, planned disparity. The quiet declaration that one child's future was a priority worthy of significant, long-term sacrifice, while the other's was an afterthought. My voice, when I finally found it, was shaky.
You
had a full college fund for Sarah? Since she was born? My dad looked surprised by the question, as if it were common knowledge. Oh, yes, he said cheerfully. Started putting money away immediately. Best thing we ever did, my mom chimed in. We wanted to make sure she could focus on her studies, not worry about money. You were always so good with money, dear, she added to me, another backhanded compliment disguised as praise. We knew you'd figure it out. Figured it out? I nearly broke myself figuring it out. The ramen diet, the sleepless nights worrying about rent, the years spent paying off loans that felt like an anchor dragging me down. That was figuring it out? The injustice of it was a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. Excusing myself, I walked out, leaving the untouched dinner behind. I drove home in a fog of betrayal and hurt so profound it felt like grief. The car smelled faintly of old coffee, a smell that now felt tainted by the bitter reality I had just learned. The silence of my own apartment was deafening compared to the forced cheerfulness I'd left behind. This wasn't just about favoritism anymore. This was active disparity, planned from my sister's cradle, while I was left to scramble. The knowledge settled deep in my gut, a cold, hard stone. My relationship with my parents, already strained by years of subtle inequality, fractured in that moment. There was no going back to pretending it was all fair. The picture was complete now, and it showed me clearly outside the frame, an accessory to the main event of Sarah's perfectly funded life. The trust, already thin, evaporated entirely. My first attempts to talk to them about it were disastrous.
I didn't yell.
I tried to be calm, to explain how it felt, the years of struggle, the debt, the feeling of being less important. My mother became defensive, tears welling up. We did our best, she'd cry. We gave you everything you needed. You never asked for help. As if you were supposed to ask for equal treatment. As if the default wasn't supposed to be fairness. My father retreated behind a wall of financial jargon and vague statements about different needs and circumstances. They talked about Sarah's potential, again, her fragility, things I never heard applied to myself. They reinforced the narrative that I was the strong one, the one who didn't need a safety net, the one who would always land on their feet. It was less about conscious cruelty and more about a blind spot the size of a planet, coupled with an inability to admit they had made a fundamental error in treating their children differently. These conversations went nowhere, leaving me feeling more isolated and hurt than before. I started visiting less, the strained silence punctuated by their continued, casual mentions of Sarah's life, her career path they were helping fund, her new apartment they helped with the down payment on. Each mention was a small twist of the knife, a reminder of the chasm between us. Meanwhile, my own life was a constant juggle. Raising my son, Alex, working a job that paid the bills but not much more, trying to save for his future. Every dollar I set aside felt hard-won, carved out of necessity and sacrifice. There was no family safety net, no unexpected windfalls, just the steady, often exhausting, rhythm of making ends meet and trying to build something stable from the ground up. I watched Alex grow, bright and curious, full of his own potential. And a fierce, protective instinct rose up in me. He would not feel what I felt. He would not be left to hack his way through the underbrush alone. His path, while it would require his own hard work, would be supported. Not by grandparents who played favorites, but by a parent who understood the cost of being left behind. The struggle wasn't just financial, it was emotional. Burying the hurt, managing the resentment, pretending to be okay at family gatherings while my parents talked about Sarah's latest achievement, funded in part by the resources I was denied. The dry humor I developed became a shield, a way to deflect the pain. Guess I'm just built different. I joke bitterly to friends, referring to my self-made status, but the humor always had a sharp, sad edge to it. The tragic element of it all was the slow, steady erosion of the parent-child relationship. It withered from neglect and the bitter frost of unfairness. The challenges intensified as Alex got older and college became a tangible reality, not just a distant worry. Tuition costs seemed to skyrocket overnight. My savings, diligently built over years, felt like a drop in a very large, very expensive ocean. I started exploring scholarships, grants, any avenue to lessen the burden of loans on Alex. It was overwhelming. The sheer volume of applications, the specific requirements, the fierce competition. Every form I filled out felt like an indictment of my own inability to provide fully, a painful echo of the financial insecurity I'd always known. The parents, sensing the looming financial stress on my end, didn't offer help. Instead, they'd make casual, seemingly innocent comments. College is so expensive these days, isn't it? Glad we took care of Sarah's early, or have you looked into state schools? They're much more affordable. It wasn't just unhelpful. It felt like a subtle jab, a reminder that I was still navigating the financial wilderness they had exempted Sarah from. These comments stung, reopening the old wounds, reminding me of the effortless ease with which they had secured Sarah's future while leaving mine to chance. Alex, observing the stress, the late nights I spent hunched over financial aid forms, the quiet worry lines etched deeper into my face, started to ask questions. Why is college so hard to pay for, Mom? Did Grandma and Grandpa help you with college? How do you answer that without poisoning him against them entirely? You tell them the truth, or a version of it. That some families can help, and some families have to figure it out differently. That our family figures it out through hard work and smart choices. You emphasize our family, creating a unit that stands apart, relies on itself. The rising challenges weren't just about the money. They were about the emotional toll of constantly pushing against the current, knowing that others had a smooth, assisted passage. It was about shielding my son from the full weight of the financial burden while simultaneously teaching him the value of earning your way. The pressure mounted, a physical weight on my chest. Failure wasn't an option. Not for Alex. I wouldn't let him start his adult life burdened by the same debt and financial anxiety that had colored my own. I wouldn't let their past choices dictate his future. This determination, born of love for Alex and the deep-seated need to break the cycle, became my driving force. It fueled the late nights researching scholarships, the endless essays, the meticulous gathering of documents. Every application sent was a small act of defiance against the narrative that I, and by extension, my child, were less deserving of a smooth path. The rising challenges forged a steel core within me. The gentle, hopeful dreamer I might have been was replaced by someone harder, more resilient, and utterly focused on securing Alex's future, whatever the cost to myself. The thought of approaching my parents for help was unthinkable. It would require admitting need, something they had taught me not to show, and it would inevitably lead to disappointment and hurt. No, this was a battle I would fight alone for my family. The midpoint shift wasn't a single dramatic event, but a slow, internal crystallization. It happened over months, maybe even a couple of years, fueled by the repeated sting of their indifference and the sheer exhaustion of trying to bridge a gap they seemed content to maintain. It was the realization that the wound they'd inflicted wasn't going to heal with their apology or recognition. It wasn't going to heal at all as long as I kept hoping they would change. They wouldn't. They couldn't see it or wouldn't admit it. The years of subtle favoritism, culminating in the blatant disparity of the college funds, had set a pattern, a deep groove in their relationship with their children. And I was tired. Tired of feeling hurt, tired of feeling resentful, tired of the quiet disappointment that clung to me after every interaction. The shift was the moment I stopped waiting for them to be the parents I needed them to be. I mourned that possibility, privately, fiercely. It felt like a death, a final severing of a bond that had been fraying for decades. And in the space left by that morning, something cold and clear took root. I stopped seeing them as potential saviors, or even as people whose approval I needed. They became data points, variables in the equation of my life, but not central ones. My focus narrowed, sharpened. All my energy, all my emotional investment poured into Alex and building our future. Their narrative, that I was the strong one who didn't need help, that Sarah was the one who did, no longer held power over me. It became their story, their justification, not my reality. My reality was the life I was building, brick by painstaking brick. My reality was Alex's potential, fostered by my sacrifices, not their gifts. This realization freed me. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore, not primarily. It was about building something so undeniably strong, so successful on its own terms, that their past actions would be rendered irrelevant. Their favoritism would not hold Alex back. Their lack of support would not define his opportunities. The goal shifted from seeking validation to achieving total, undeniable independence and success for my son. The bitterness didn't entirely dissipate, but it was transmuted into a cold, focused resolve. I stopped trying to make them see. I started focusing on making us soar so high their low expectations couldn't touch us. The conversations with Alex about college shifted too. Less emphasis on the financial struggle, more on finding the right fit, the place that would challenge and nurture him. More emphasis on scholarships as opportunities, earned through his hard work and talent, not begged for. We were a team, facing the future together, relying on each other, and on the strength we were building within our own small unit. The external pressure didn't ease, the financial strain remained, but the internal landscape changed fundamentally. I was no longer fighting against their perception of me. I was building a reality that would make their perception obsolete. This quiet, internal revolution was my turning point. I wasn't a victim of their choices. I was the architect of my son's future, and that was a position of power they could never take away. The crisis deepened the closer Alex got to application deadlines. The scholarship applications piled up, each one a lottery ticket I couldn't afford not to buy with time and effort. The prestigious universities he was applying to had astronomical costs. Even with potential aid, the numbers were terrifying. I ran spreadsheets late into the night, calculating potential loans, payment plans, the years it would take to pay it off. It felt like trading one debt sentence for another. The stress was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe sometimes. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was setting Alex up for financial ruin before he even started his career. My parents, perhaps sensing my anxiety, but still utterly missing the point, would occasionally offer unsolicited advice. Have you considered community college for the first 2 years? It's much cheaper. Or maybe he could work full-time for a year to save up. The irony was thick enough to choke on. They, who had ensured Sarah wouldn't have to worry about a single cent, were suggesting my bright, hard-working son delay his education or settle for less. It wasn't malicious, not in their minds. It was just oblivious. A constant reminder of the different standards they applied. These moments fueled the deepening crisis. It wasn't just the financial hurdle, it was the emotional exhaustion of facing this monumental task alone, knowing that the very people who should offer unconditional support were, instead, offering platitudes and suggestions that felt like thinly veiled criticisms of my inability to manifest a college fund out of thin air. I saw other parents, with involved grandparents offering financial help, advice, or even just emotional reassurance. I felt a pang of something akin to envy, but mostly just a profound sense of isolation. This was my fight, and mine alone. Alex was working hard too, studying late, excelling in his classes, pouring his energy into extracurriculars that made his application shine. He was doing everything right. The burden was on me to make it financially possible. The pressure felt immense, sometimes crushing. There were moments of doubt, of despair, when I wondered if I could actually pull this off, if I was setting him up for disappointment. The mountain of applications seemed insurmountable, the cost of college a mocking, distant peak. All my carefully built savings felt insignificant against the backdrop of university fees that seemed designed to exclude anyone without generational wealth or extraordinary luck. It felt like everything I had worked for, everything I had built through sheer grit and determination, might not be enough. The fear of failure, of letting Alex down, was a cold knot in my stomach, a constant companion through those months. The turning point arrived quietly, not with a bang, but a settling of bone-deep resolve. It wasn't a single event, but the culmination of countless small struggles, dismissals, and the mounting pressure of Alex's looming future. It was the moment I looked at Alex, asleep on the couch after a late night studying, his face peaceful and full of untapped potential, and made a vow that felt less like a promise and more like an unbreakable law. I would not let the circumstances of my past dictate his future. I would not let their inability to see my worth limit his opportunities. This wasn't about anger anymore or even vindication. It was about fierce, protective love and a deep-seated commitment to breaking the cycle of unequal opportunity. The financial stress hadn't vanished, but my perspective shifted. Instead of seeing the mountain of costs, I saw the summit. Alex walking onto campus, excited, unburdened by debt, ready to learn. And I would find a way to get him there. My determination hardened, became sharper, colder. I stopped wasting energy on feeling hurt by my parents or resenting Sarah's ease. That energy was redirected, laser-focused on the goal, securing the best possible future for Alex. Every scholarship essay became a battle one. Every application submitted a step closer to the summit. I researched lesser-known grants, regional scholarships, corporate sponsorships, anything and everything. I coached Alex on interviews, helped him polish his essays, celebrated every small application submitted. We were in this together, a silent partnership built on mutual trust and shared ambition. The fear was still there, a low hum beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by a relentless drive. I wasn't asking for permission or waiting for a handout. I was building a future, piece by piece, with my own two hands and Alex's bright mind. The cold, hard acceptance of my parents' limitations had cleared the fog. There was no external cavalry coming. It was just us. And that realization, while isolating, was also incredibly empowering. It stripped away the last vestiges of hope for external validation and replaced it with an unshakable reliance on ourselves. This was the turning point, a complete, unadulterated commitment to self-reliance and to providing for Alex by any ethical means necessary, fueled by a refusal to let past injustices define our future. The weight of the task was immense, but the clarity of purpose made the path, however steep, visible. I would climb that mountain. For Alex. The envelope. It sat on the kitchen counter, innocuous among the junk mail and bills. But I knew. The size, the thickness, the official look of the return address from Alex's top-choice university. The one with the prestigious program, the one with the costs that had given me sleepless nights for months. Alex was at school, having left that morning oblivious to the potential life-altering news waiting in the mailbox. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for it. The paper felt significant, weighted with potential, both good and terrifying. I carried it to the table, the same table where years ago I'd learned about Sarah's effortless college fund. The irony wasn't lost on me. This table had been the site of my deepest financial hurt. Now, it held the possibility of ultimate financial vindication. I sat down, the envelope centered in front of me like a sacred text. I took a deep breath, the air still feeling thin, just like that day years ago. But this time, it wasn't dread making it so. It was pure, unadulterated anticipation. My heart hammered against my ribs. I slid a finger under the flap, the tearing sound loud in the quiet room. I unfolded the letter, my eyes scanning, searching for keywords. "We are pleased to inform you, yes." Okay. Keep reading. "Of your acceptance, yes." Oh God, yes. Tears welled immediately, blurring the words. And to offer you the name of prestigious scholarship, my breath hitched. The big one. The full ride. The one that was impossibly competitive. Which covers the full cost of tuition, fees, room, board, and a stipend for books and personal expenses, full ride. Everything. Just like Sarah's. But this wasn't given. This was earned. It wasn't funded by parents' foresight from birth. It was funded by Alex's intellect, his hard work, his merit. And then I saw it. Beneath the formal closing, the signature. Name, Dean of Admissions, not just an automated letter.
Signed. Personally.
By the Dean. It wasn't just a scholarship, it was a statement. A recognition of exceptional merit, validated at the highest level. I collapsed into the chair, sobbing. The letter clutched against my chest. It wasn't just relief. It was vindication. Years of feeling unseen, of being told implicitly and explicitly that I wasn't worth the investment, that my path would be harder, that I was on my own. All of it, in this single moment, was rendered meaningless. Alex had done it. We had done it. Without a safety net, without a legacy fund, without their help. He had earned a future so bright, so fully funded by his own merit, that their past favoritism shrank into insignificance. The cold stone in my gut melted, replaced by a wave of warmth and pride so intense it was almost painful. I needed to tell Alex. I fumbled for my phone, fingers clumsy with emotion. He answered, his voice bright, unsuspecting. Hey, Mom. What's up? Alex, I choked out, tears still streaming. The letter came. From university name. A beat of silence. Then his voice tight with anxiety. And, you got in, I whispered, a sob escaping. And Alex, you got this scholarship name. It's a full ride. Everything. Signed by the dean, the silence on the other end was absolute. Then, an explosion of sound. A choked cry, a shout, maybe his friends in the background reacting. Mom? Are you serious? Oh my God. Mom. His excitement was infectious, pure joy. After we hung up, tears still wet on my face, a new thought solidified. I had to tell my parents. Not to gloat, not to make them feel bad, though a tiny, cold part of me relished that prospect, but because it was a significant life event for their grandson. And I wanted to see their reaction. I called, my voice now steady, wiped clean of the raw emotion I'd just experienced, replaced by a cool, quiet confidence. My mother answered. Oh, hello, dear. Everything all right? Yes, Mom. Everything's wonderful, actually. I just got a letter from university name. A pause. Oh, for Alex? That's nice. Her tone was pleasant, dismissive. Yes. I continued, my voice calm. He was accepted. Oh, how lovely, she said, the same polite disinterest. This was it. The moment. And I said, letting the weight of the words land, he was awarded this scholarship name. It's a full scholarship. Covers everything. Tuition, room, board, books. The letter was signed personally by the Dean of Admissions. Silence. Not just a pause. A dead, stunned silence on the other end of the line. I could hear my father asking in the background, who is it? What's she saying? My mother fumbled with the phone. He got a scholarship, she stammered, her voice losing its casual ease, a flicker of disbelief entering. A full scholarship? My father took the phone. His voice, usually booming, was hesitant. A full ride? For Alex. Yes, Dad. I confirmed, keeping my voice even. A full, merit-based scholarship. Signed by the dean. More silence. I could almost hear the gears grinding in their heads, trying to reconcile this reality with their long-held narrative. Their capable daughter, who they left to figure it out, had raised a son whose achievement, earned through his own remarkable merit, dwarfed the planned, funded ease they had provided for Sarah. Their investment in Sarah had secured her future. Alex, through his own effort and my unwavering support, had secured one that was not only comparable in terms of financial freedom but arguably more prestigious, more a testament to individual excellence. There was no way to diminish this. No way to say he needed help, no way to imply it wasn't a significant achievement. It was a full ride from a top university, awarded based on his own merit, validated by the dean himself. It was undeniable. Their silence stretched, thick with unspoken implications, with the sudden collapse of their narrative. They couldn't offer congratulations without acknowledging the magnitude of the achievement they had no part in. They couldn't express pride without highlighting the contrast with how they had treated me. They were, for the first time, completely silenced by our success. It wasn't the angry confrontation I might have once dreamed of. It was something colder, more satisfying. Their silence was the sound of their narrative shattering. The silence on the phone eventually broke into awkward, fumbling congratulations. They were stilted, lacking the easy enthusiasm they displayed for Sarah's achievements. They asked questions about the university, the program, trying to sound interested, but the underlying tone was one of shock and confusion. It was clear this wasn't how they had envisioned things playing out. They had expected me to struggle, to maybe send Alex to a local college, burdened by loans, a reflection of their own lower expectations for me. Instead, their grandson was heading to a prestigious university, his way paid entirely by merit, an achievement that stood completely outside of their influence or assistance. When we saw them next, the atmosphere was strange. They tried to bring it up, but their pride felt forced, tinged with something else. Regret? Discomfort? They couldn't look me in the eye when they talked about it. The conversation quickly shifted to Sarah's latest news, a familiar pattern, but it felt hollow now. Their favoritism hadn't stopped, but its impact on my life, and more importantly on Alex's future, had been neutralized. The pain of their past actions hadn't vanished entirely. Scars remain. But holding that scholarship letter, seeing Alex's face light up, watching him step confidently into a future he earned, that was the ultimate healing balm. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore, although there was a quiet, deep satisfaction in their stunned silence. It was about building something strong and independent, a future founded on resilience and earned success, not inherited advantage. It was about breaking the cycle. Alex will go to college free of debt, free of the weight of financial worry that I carried. He will thrive because of his own talent and hard work, supported by the parent who always believed in him, even when others didn't. The relationship with my parents remains complex, distant, perhaps permanently altered. The silence on the phone that day spoke volumes. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the recognition, the validation, the undeniable proof that worth is self-made, not given. And sometimes, the quietest victories are the most powerful. The paper in my hand, signed by the dean, wasn't just a scholarship. It was a declaration of independence. For Alex, yes, but just as powerfully for me. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt unseen, underestimated, or had to build your own path when others were given a head start, I'd love to hear your version in the comments below. Sharing helps us feel less alone. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Your support makes it possible to share these deeply personal stories. Thank you for being here.